We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America.
It's the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land. Through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. Which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, Emily. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the reparationist perspective, bringing you those Freedmen hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote, socializing our suffering. How y'all doing, family? I see you, Yaira, The Rock. Who else is in here? Insane Optimist and Trey Lincoln and Antithesis. Y'all were in the building early. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so very much for being with me live, family. I am so thankful for your presence. Welcome, Twitter, Racebook. I finally got Racebook back today. We'll see for how long. So I'm just going to be sharing my links over there because, you know, they don't really like it. These folks are censoring me and shadow banning me. Speaking of which, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Thank you so very, very much. Let me see here. I want to scroll my banner before I bring a son up. I'm not going to be long in introing the broadcast today. I'm just trying to wait until I see her avatar turn live. She's still getting ready to come on board with us. Let's see here. I want to scroll my bar. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, family. Okay, well, you know, I am just looking at how much work I've got to do. I don't know if Hassan has the results of the last election by race I've been trying to find the results by race. Yaira, you're in the building. Maybe you can find the results breakdown by race. But right now, I'm not seeing them. And that's really what I was been waiting for. That's why this broadcast is coming to you a little later than anticipated, because I really want to see what American Freedmen did and if our numbers improve since the last election cycle for the closed border candidates. What I'm observing so far, it's not looking good. It appears that American freedmen are still showing up to vote for their own peril. Yeah, so I have a lot of work to do between now and 24 to get the word out. We need closed border candidates and citizenship first candidates, family, or we are finished if we continue this. I don't understand how Biden, Joe Crow's numbers have been in the toilet, and yet they're delivering numbers. So either it's because we stayed home and the immigrants did just as I told y'all they would do, which is show up in droves to vote to continue to receive our citizenship rights, or we went out here and foolishly continued voting blue no matter damn who. Okay, so I'm not sure, and that's high reps. I see you, family. That's why I need to see what happened with these numbers. I need to see if my Freedmen protest voter strategy had any traction. So with that being said, I'm still waiting on a son. A son, when I see your face live, I'm presuming that you're ready to come up from the lobby. But let me get it going. Hi, JV in Twitter space. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, family, if you can share the space out. I didn't advertise in Twitter space, so I don't know how many there will be, but I do know that it's imperative that my messaging go viral. And so that's why I've got a son here to help me unpack what just happened. So without further ado, let me get into my first article. And of course, family, I'm going to be, I'm ready. Just use my avatar. Okay, so she's ready. Let me bring her up. Hold on, family. I want to make us even. Let me see here. How do I do that? There we go. What's up, son?
Hey, family. How are you? I'm good.
Less than unstoppable. Thank you so much for joining the live, sis.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to start before I jump into the bullshiggity. I want to start by commending you and your organization, the Capital Accountability Project out of the DMV. Congratulations for growing STACIA Hall, the GOP DC mayoral candidate, from 2,500 votes to 17,500 votes for a total of 20,000 votes in 3 weeks.
Actually, 20,789. We're not taking none of them.
Did y'all hear that loud and clear? 20,789 is what a son Powell and her organization CAP up out of the DMV was able to attain for GOP DC mayoral candidate STACIA Hall. Let's give a round of applause. Welcome, Gloria. I see you, fam.
Thank you.
I am so elated because you did this on a little to no budget. And I did want you to speak about what made you victorious. I mean, I know what made you victorious.
You were a part of it.
Thank you, sis. But I wasn't those boots on the ground. I was a loudmouth over here on ScrewTube, sounding the alarm in Twitter space. Shout out to Marcel, too. He brought STACIA on his platform, and I am eternally grateful to everyone who helped to spread the word and get our sister from 2,500 to 20,789 votes in the nation's capital. And in 3 weeks with no money.
3 weeks.
Now, I've been throwing away a lot of money because I don't see the numbers that you put up with no money. Could you please share with me how you did it so we can instruct our comrades throughout the country how to get it done in their respective states for closed border candidates with a Freedmen agenda. Please share.
So really, it's really no rocket science to it, and I hope that everyone that's listening, that your audience can appreciate that it's a very simple formula. That was that we went through the candidates. As I said before, we reached out. I personally reached out to, I don't know, like 20 to 25 Democratic candidates throughout the DMV space. And then I began to reach out to the Republican candidates. I probably reached out to about 10 Republican candidates, and Stacia was the one that responded. Now, I'm not going to pretend like we didn't have Democratic candidates who did not respond, because I did pick up 3 other Democratic candidates, but they were not as serious when we brought them to the table to have a conversation with them. Therefore, we essentially worked with Stacia, one of the Democratic candidates we continue to work with here in the state of Maryland, and he did actually win his seat. The other 2 kind of fell by the wayside because they weren't serious. But the formula was initially reaching out, letting them know who we were, what our agenda was, like a basic, what I call a skeleton agenda, and inviting them to come and have a conversation with us, whether it was Zoom or by way of telephone. After we did that, then I proceeded to create what I call a policy agreement. And that was something that we sat down at CAP and we looked at some of the things that we wanted in our agenda, because we had written up already, we've already put forth the OFA, the Office of Freedmen Affairs. And so I took from that and made a whole policy agenda for them that they would have to sign, basically. And in that, one of the main clauses in that was that I thought was important was requiring that if they were elected, that they would have to agree to meet with us every 6 months to basically check in and say, how am I doing? How is your community doing? What can we improve on, and whatever, and what is your input for whatever they were doing moving forward? If they did not get elected and their intention was to run again in either the 2024 or the 2026 election, that they would commit to continuing the relationship with us as we worked with them to build out a stronger agenda for the American freedmen in our respective service areas. From there, once I got that commitment signed by them, then we agreed to endorse them. CAP is a C4, and so we are able to endorse candidates, but we didn't openly and publicly endorse them at that time. After we got the agreement signed, the next step to it was to sit down and talk to them about what the disparity studies showed relative to the areas that we were looking at. So specifically for Stacia, we CAP had the disparity studies to show her wards 7 and 8 and how they were under-resourced and for how long. And then we compared it to the other ethnic groups and the other wards. And then, of course, everyone, for the most part, most people know how DC was having the illegal immigrants bust from Texas and Florida. And so we showed the impact to that as well, and how resources were immediately found in their behalf. And it was a migrant affairs office set up, an Office of Migrant Affairs set up immediately for them. And yet these 2 wards were still being heavily deprived of the basic essentials when it comes to citizenship. And so after we did that, Stacia was, I would say, a very rare candidate in the respects that she was totally open to finding out, okay, what can I do? How do I put this together? And she was just almost like a sponge. She was like a sponge, really, because she just sat and she read, and we went over articles, and we probably talked every day for about 4 to 5 hours. It wasn't a day from that point forward that we did not speak. And then we eventually we were able to agree on a specific policy an agenda specifically for Wars 7 and 8 that was built, of course, around and for the freedmen. And then we moved that to citizenship and residents there in DC, because although a large part of War 7 and 8, as we know, 95% are freedmen, we still have to acknowledge the fact that there are other ethnic groups in those areas as well. And they range from white to Hispanic to African to just all. And so we didn't want to just per se ignore that fact, because we needed to capture all the votes coming out of those two wars. And at that point, I was invited to go to the RNC. I forgot what they formally call it, but let's just, for the sake of our conversation, like one of their conference, and I was asked to speak there. So I prepared a speech and all the good stuff that we do as far as coming from the aspect of the freedmen. And truthfully, like the night before, I decided not to do it. And, there was someone I know personally that was like, yeah, I think you make sense. And I decided not to do it, not because I was afraid or insecure of the message that I was going to deliver, but I was in unfamiliar waters because we were for the first time in the GOP space. We had never attended any type of conference, any type of rallies, anything relative to the GOP. I've been a part of the Green Party, Black Caucus. I've been a part of the DNC, obviously, because that's historically where, we've always been active. And so this was unfamiliar waters to me. And I wanted to study the landscaping and, take the temperature. I needed to figure out more what and how they were moving, what they were thinking. And so I chose not to speak. And I attended, got to know a lot of them. It was very contentious initially with a lot of the conversations. At the end of that particular night that I did attend, STACIA actually left at like 9 and left me there until I think we were there till like 11:30 at night, all on my own by myself.
Wow.
Holding it down for the American freedmen. But it did forge some political relationships that allowed me to then move forward with STACIA's campaign. What I did, in all honesty, see was that I didn't think that they were as serious as I initially thought about when it came to her. Right? And so from there, she and I had a conversation. I gave her my opinion on it. And then we devised a plan. And essentially, as most people know now, I became her official political campaign manager for her campaign. And at that point, the RNC pretty much dipped out. And that became a CAP campaign. So CAP Accountability then took over in every aspect of campaigning for her. We ran boots on the ground activities every weekend. We devised all of her flyers. We created her entire Freedmen agenda and her basic resident agenda. We revamped her website. We went into action because this was a Freedmen candidate, which was the first mayoral GOP American freedmen candidate in history. And if we weren't going to take home a full win, we were going to darn sure do everything we could to send a solid, resounding message to the DNC and the RNC that the American freedmen are awake. Our vote is up for sale, and we are coming with a clear and concise agenda. If you're not playing with us, then you will now see that we are not playing with you. And you will now work for us. And so we essentially took the entire campaign from the RNC and we ran it exclusively. And from doing that, we put hours of boots on the ground. Like, we just didn't stop. We worked the wars. We worked Wars 3, Wars 6, Wars 7, and Wars 8 heavily. The reason why we worked Wars 3 and Wars 6, although those two are the most affluent wards in DC, because that's where the majority of the registered Republicans are. And so we knew that we actually created two separate door hangers. One was a general like resident one, so that we could communicate in that way. And then when we went into Ward 7 and 8, we had a specific agenda that we did not call the Black agenda. On the door knocker, it did say Black agenda. But when we spoke with people about it, we made sure to say we have a specific agenda for Ward 7 and 8, so that we didn't lock out or turn a deaf ear to someone who may not have been a freedman. Because at this point, we were not campaigning for freedmen. We were campaigning for the mayor, for the mayoral seat of the nation's capital. And so we understood the importance of having to change our dialects now. And from doing that, we essentially broke 3 records in history. STACIA successfully has received the most votes out of any GOP mayoral candidate in the nation's history, the nation's capital history. She is the first female American freedman candidate as well for mayor. And she has blown out. She literally had a humble budget that wasn't even it barely hit 2,200, 2,700.
Wow.
And we were successful in getting the robocalls done, getting the votes out there, having her watch party, having people turn out. And what was more amazing, I will say, and give total credit to the Washingtonians in Ward 7 and 8. Like when we spoke to our family, the Freedmen family members out there who didn't know they were Freedmen, they just considered themselves Black or African American. When we showed them the agenda, when we spoke to them about what their disparities were, because they know that they are deprived, but they weren't able to articulate it. But the moment they heard us speak to them in what we would say is the political jargon, but they understood it, they immediately said, "Oh, you got my vote." No questions asked.
Wow.
I mean, they were just so embracing. It was amazing. And they delivered a win. Rather we won the mayoral seat or not, we won when it came to sending a resounding message, one, to the DNC and the RNC. We've now ignited a fire within the Freedmen community there. We are now deeply involved with other organizations that we met on the campaign trail that have now aligned with us to assist us in moving forward with the agenda that we prescribe. So now we have access, and remember, because DC is a federal city, they have direct access to the legislative body, unlike us as far as our states go. And so the access that we now have is phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and it's positioning us to really be a power player when it comes to freedmen politics in the nation's capital in 2024. And even before 2024, because there are other seats that are coming up at the local ward level, as well as at the city council level. There's more transitioning happening. And so we're looking forward to it. But that was essentially our blueprint. We reached out to the candidate. After we got with the candidate, we did the policy pledge that they would have to pledge to agree to the requirements that we have on that. From there, we then devised the Freedmen agenda based on the disparity studies through the MBE that we pulled. And then from there, we just, from in our past, we used to say, what was it, Project Takeover? Well, that was the goal. We scoped out what team was already existing, and then we highlighted their faults to the candidate, and we showed how we could be stronger. And then the candidate, what candidate would say no when they know themselves that they weren't getting the full support needed to be a viable, competitor in that race. And so from that point forward, we took it over, and that's how we won it. We took it over. I personally made sure that she was ran on all the Freedmen channels, like through the Freedmen's Party, through here. through Marcel and through various other social media outlets.
Yes.
Yeah, and then did public public appearances here, and I was always there to make sure that if she fell short in being able to answer something relative to the Freedmen agenda, that I would be there to back her. And essentially, that was our win. We didn't have to take home the mayoral seat for the first run, but we will definitely take it home on the next run, and we will be much stronger in that community for the next 2 years, so that we make sure that the freedmen here are going to be taken care of, at least in the nation's capital.
I am just so elated to have been a part of it. Shout out to the Freedmen News Network as well. They had her on live with you as well. And I was just elated and ecstatic to be a part of it all. A lot of us are giving monies to candidates. And while I get that we need Freedmen candidates in Congress and at every level of office, there was something uniquely different when I did the research between how much money various Freedmen candidates have raised versus how much they spent on their campaign versus how many votes they produced. And so I wanted you to please share with me and the others, how do we find the kind of candidates that were open at the top like you did in STACIA? Does it require us to pick up the phone and make dials? Does it require us to sway those who have already run for office, who may have lost and then now want another shot? We're also flirting with the other side, going in there with our demands. And this midterm, it doesn't appear that we delivered the votes I was hopeful to deliver. I've not seen the outcome of the midterms by race to really gauge if our numbers are growing for closed border citizenship first candidates. But what would you advise? Because you already know that we've been neutralized economically. We don't have good money to be throwing after bad on candidates who are inexperienced, not open at the top to learning how to get it done, not open at the top for a Freedmen agenda. Just what would you advise when we're seeking to support candidates, especially that don't necessarily live in the states where we reside and could offer a vote in lieu of money? What would you recommend?
So first, let me say, I'm just like every one of us that are out here as freedmen. We came into this fight because we were all tired of seeing our lives not progressive. And so we all came in here at a level of, I want to learn, I want to understand. And that is still where I say I am and where most of us are. When it comes to our candidates, I know and all of us agree that it's important that we support and push forward candidates that are freedmen, that are going to stand on a freedmen agenda. That is an absolute. That's the only way that we're going to win first. So I don't take anything from any person who is courageous enough, like STACIA, and like Marcel, like Tamara, and so many others who are now throwing their hat in this political arena. But what I will say to those of us who may not be running or may even be considering running, such like myself, we should all be subject to vetting. Okay. As bad as freedmen want to have candidates in congressional seats, in local city seats, city council seats, and county council seats, and state delegates and state senators, we want that. But we have to be cautious and cognizant of the fact that people exploit our needs and our desires, right? And that's, again, I'm a person that's putting my hat in this political, arena come 2024. But I'm not above being subjected to being vetted, even though I'm a part of this, of this reparationist movement. I should still be willing to be vetted. And so my recommendation for any candidate is we should create at least the organizations that you're working with. You all should sit down with, if you have an advisory board or if you just have a collection of you all that's working together, and you should create what I call a 3-tier survey. And that 3-tier survey should be broken out to local politics or local politicians, then your state politicians, and then your federal politicians. And each one of those surveys should be different and have different requirements. Okay, for instance, if AHUSN is running for a president, for the president of the United States, for that seat, a presidential seat, AHUSN should have more than just nothing at all. I just want to run. It's not, that's not acceptable. It's not feasible when we as the freedmen are educated enough in this political space to understand that you got DeSantis that may be running, you have Gavin Newsom, you have Larry Hogan, you have all these big, you have even Trump, you have all these big heavyweight political figures running. It is unacceptable for AHUSN to come to the freedmen and say, hey, family, I want you to support me because, yeah, I just want to run. I've never held a county council seat, a local PTA seat. I've never even held, I've never even advocated, other than, at least for me, I have my local advocacy work. But for some people, right, we just don't have anything. We've never even read a bill. Right? We are not affiliated with any actively engaged organizations that are advocating in the freedmen's behalf. And yet people are showing up in the freedmen's space saying, hey, I want to run and I want your support. And then we have other people that are pushing them forward. I personally believe the freedmen are so much more educated and intelligent than that it's an insult for people to just put anyone before us without vetting them. And henceforth, why I did not put STACIA before the Freedmen Nations, what I call us, right? I did not put her before the Freedmen Nation until she was willing to sign that policy pledge, until we went through an education process, and then we devised and agreed on a agenda, right? Where I knew that that we were going to be solid when it came to pushing her before us and asking for financial assistance. Not only that, but I also vetted her in her background, something that we don't always do here when people are brought before us. So again, the 3-tier survey is a key, and it's essential to us actually getting candidates who have a real feasibility of a win. Is what we need to start looking at. Now, if the same AHUSN wants to run for PTA, for the PTA president, then I might be a darn good candidate who can win that, because people know my footprint locally in my advocating for the freedmen. So that obviously I would have some knowledge and some experience. But now if AHUSN was really trying to run for governor, I can personally tell you, I am in no way, shape, qualified for it, just because the law says I just need to be 18 years old and be an American citizen. It doesn't make me qualified. And I would not want the Freedmen Nation to financially support me when I have not demonstrated before you all that I am capable of handling that job if I was actually going to be elected. So essentially, what our Freedmen Nation needs to understand is we must establish requirements. We must establish the levels of who we're going to push forward based on what position they are running for. You don't get to come in here and say, I'm running for a congressional seat, and yet you haven't done any work in any legislative office. You haven't headed up anything. You just have, you're really, really skilled at talking. But I need to see your real work knowledge now. because a talker is a talker. And I get that a lot of politicians can be dumb as bricks, but those that are dumb as bricks are fully funded, okay, with houses, right? We got a brick, they got the whole house already. And so essentially what I'm saying is they are insulated because they have the protection of the complexion that we don't have. So they're insulated. And so good money can be thrown behind them because they're insulated. We're not insulated like that. And so we have to continue to remain gated up, and we have to do a better job at vetting our candidates. You don't get to come on here and say, I'm running on a Freedmen platform, and you don't even know what Freedmen are. That's unacceptable, and it's disrespectful to us.
I agree. Hi, Ivy Dreams. Hi, 50/50. Thank you guys for joining the live. You were so right. I had another question of you. Quite a few comrades are feeling let down with respect to some of the organizations they've chosen to financially get behind and support. What kind of insight? Because I believe that organizations need to be vetted as well, or you can start to feel exploited. Is there any insight you can share with the freedmen throughout the nation and the world that are tuning in as to, what should they be looking for when they decide to go to work with said organizations? I find that far too many of us are so focused on reparations. This is what got my goat. Someone was challenging me in Twitter because I put up a message about Freedmen tangibles because of how strong the no tangibles, no vote mantra was. It was just pretty much overpowering my Freedmen protest voter strategy. And I listed the Freedmen tangibles. And on there was closed borders, getting rid of the illegal immigrants, a moratorium on legal immigration until American freedmen are made whole, citizenship first, and a Freedmen Reinvestment Act, FRA, a Freedmen Reinvestment Act. And the person challenged me. And they said, well, what about reparations? And so I am not really sure what I responded, but it was something akin to, go seek out your leaders in air quotes and tell them, how do we ever intend to live long enough and survive long enough to even get reparations? And then they came back and was sassafras, and everybody they named in their response were people that aren't really doing the work. They are what you call great orators. They know how to speak. They've got their screw tube numbers, and they've got, the momentum behind them because they have bigger following. But there was not one person whom I respect doing this work. Well, maybe one person that is doing this work whom I respect that I would advise anyone to go to on reparations and the fight for immediate relief for our group. So could you, share the importance of even vetting the organizations you financially support with your time and resources? And could you also share the importance of my Freedmen protest voter strategy as we head into 24?
So as far as the organizations, again, I'm going to keep giving Freedmen the credit. I think that we are astute enough politically now. I think we have shown that we are awake, that we are intelligent, articulate people. We have to be able to, we have to be able to see beyond our emotions and get back into the reality of things. And that's a problem for us. And it's something that the nation has weaponized against us since our inception here, that we are emotional people. We are people who are rather loyal when we don't need to be loyal. right? And it's very hard for us sometimes to break that loyalty. The reality is the organizations that we all are a part of, because most of us are a part of multiple reparationist organizations, because we want to do all that we can to achieve the ultimate goal of reparative justice at the state level, and then reparations at the federal level. But these organizations, we have to always step back and have a keen eye and have a tuned in listening ear and constantly ask ourselves, am I falling back into Negro politics? Right? Am I falling back into the mindset of playing acceptability politics? And even if the organization may say that they're not, evaluate how they're moving. Evaluate if you bring something to them. For instance, if you brought something to them, maybe about closing the borders or speaking, period, about immigration, and they're like, no, we're not talking about immigration, that should be a red flag, simply because we know that immigration is one of our biggest imminent threats when it comes to our success here. That is an undisputed fact. And even if you don't want to take it from Angela and her closed border strategy, then let's take it back to the back of the hiring line by Roy Beck. Right? Let's just take it back to the numbers of the unemployed freedmen men, and then the underemployment of the freedmen nation because of immigration. Like, these are obvious actions that are taking place real time in front of us right now. And so any organization that's unwilling to address that as a threat to us should cause a red flag to come up to any of us who are sincere about this work. There's a lot of us that are working. Some of us have our own personal aspirations as to why we're doing this. It's not about the full freedman nation. It's about your personal aspirations. Some of us are just doing it because we just enjoy clout. And those of us who are sincere, who don't get any money from anyone, who basically are going broke funding this fight themselves.
Yeah.
Such like myself and many, many others out here, we're funding our organizations. We're paying. There's no donations coming in for us. And as far as CAP, we don't even run Twitter spaces. We don't run YouTube. We don't ask anyone for anything. Yep. Except for your physical time to volunteer. Outside of that, we don't ask for anything. It's all privately funded through our advisory board for the most part. We don't even ask our members for membership fees because we are here and we are about the Freedmen Nation. If other organizations are not able to show you that they are open and willing to put freedmen out there, to speak candidly about our disposition here in this country, it should send a red flag. If you see them constantly courting the same conversations, for instance, as an example, Emmett Till's situation with this woman who was never served the warrant, yeah, that is, something that is of importance to some people. But for the most part, the national group of us, the national freedmen, our nation, how impactful is that when it comes to our fight for reparations? And so when you see so-called leader organizations or leadership in our space wasting time on minute, small things that will not impact our ability to access reparations, then we should start questioning those things. We must continue to always vet people without saying that we're vetting them. We are responsible for one another. And the organizations are subject to the same vetting as we are as individuals. There should be no hands off for anyone in this space. That has always been our fail. We have always given our loyalty and our faith to people who were undeserving of it. And if we're saying that we are a new breed and that we are shifting this, then we have to shift it completely. We don't get to shift one part of it and then maintain the other part, because that keeps us right where we are, stagnant. It's just a tug of war, and we're right in the center of it. So I'm just encouraging everyone to side-eye everything.
Exactly.
Side-eye everything.
I concur, because immigration and reparations cannot coexist. They're oxymorons. They clash. And I want to move to my next question, because I'm looking at the outcome of this midterm, and it's grim with respect to my Freedmen protest voter strategy. Right now, there were Black candidates in color that made history in the midterm elections. I want to read a little bit of this and then get you to weigh in. Driving the news among several Black candidates who made history Tuesday night with election wins across the U.S. is Wes Moore. He's a Democrat who will be the first Black governor of Maryland. And Maxwell Frost, a Democrat, the 25-year-old Afro-Latino who will be the first member of Gen Z in Congress. In Maryland, Anthony Brown, a Democrat, was elected the state's first Black attorney general, while Massachusetts' Andrea Campbell, Democrat, is now the first Black woman to be elected attorney general in the state history. Summer Lee, a Democrat, became the first Black woman elected to Congress from Pennsylvania. In Connecticut, Eric Russell, a Democrat, won the race to serve as treasurer, becoming the first ever Black out LGBTQ candidate elected to statewide office in U.S. history. Stephanie Thomas, a Democrat, became the first Black woman elected to serve as Connecticut's Secretary of State. Now, for them, it matters, because for them, many Black communities' political representation is a catalyst for progress in racial equality and holding government institutions accountable. Let me stop right there. For me, this is more of that identity politics that is going on, where we got our people sheep walking to the polls, even though we had 2 terms of Barack Obama, who did nothing for American freedmen, but in the end tell us, after costing us the majority of our wealth, our homes, when he bailed out Wall Street and the banks, and did not put audits or regulation on them to lend back to us. We lost over 50% of our wealth over these identity politics. You've got Kamala in office. She came through the back door on the heels of Joe Crow, the author of the 94 crime bill. She announced her presidential run on the grounds of Howard University on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and then got on the camera and said she wasn't doing anything specifically for American freedmen. And now this, I don't know what the actual numbers are of those who chose to withhold the vote for tangibles that surely isn't coming from this lot that's just been elected. Okay, they've been elected. They didn't run on a Freedmen agenda. They wouldn't take interviews. They wouldn't come to the table with any of us. And yet our folks sheep walk to the polls to elect Crayola white supremacist who has an agenda of erasure and replacement of American freedmen with our own vote. Could you please tell me how voting blue, no matter who, and how no tangible, no vote, non-strategies are going to be to freedmen peril?
So I think, again, the freedmen who are here in the social media space, I think we understand that. And I think that that's showing in our numbers. I think that what we have to do is we have to galvanize people outside of what I call our echo chamber, which goes into the grassroots, which goes into the boots on the ground. Because those people are the people who don't understand about voting blue no matter who. Those are the people who do not understand it should be party, it should be policy over party, right? And so those are the people who are continuing to vote that way. I think that it's important that, one, we continue the education process. And this is why we need the Freedmen Nation, again, to really start doing their part. And when I say doing your part, I mean, we need to come off of, again, social media. We got to get back into reality world. We are not going to win this war on social media.
Yeah.
We're just not going to. And until enough of us say to ourselves, it's not enough for me to sit behind a screen or a keyboard. Yes, this is part of our education. No, this will not get us our tangibles. You don't get tangibles by not voting, because the candidate who won doesn't know and doesn't care that you didn't vote. And the candidate who won doesn't care if you wrote reparations or Mickey Mouse or Mighty Mouse in your on your ballot. They don't care. All they care about is that they won. So in order for us to really help our people appreciate that the time is now for a change, if it doesn't happen now, then we won't have another window, because our numbers are dwindling too. We keep talking about that the white numbers are dwindling, and that is true. Genetically, yes, but our numbers are dwindling because we are being murdered by the police. We are being murdered by the doctors. Like, every health crisis attacks us 60 billion times more than any other ethnic group here. So to assume that our numbers are going to continue to grow doesn't make sense when we already acknowledge that we are at the bottom of everything. We're the ones who live in the most raunchiest areas, where we have been redlined into all of the polluted areas. Our water is horrible. We have hookworms in our food and our soil and everything else. We live in areas where we have food deserts as it pertains to fresh, wholesome groceries. We only have all this processed, GMO'd and everything else types of food. We're the ones that disproportionately suffer from every ailment known to man, right? And now we expect that our numbers are going to continue to grow. We are the ones who are constantly indoctrinated by this system of quote unquote education. And so our true history about ourselves has always been taken from us, and our children are still being reared up in this indoctrination system. And so until we do something about that, meaning until we come out behind the screens and we get back on the ground and we start reaching across every line, we're not talking about red or blue. We're talking about red, blue, green, libertarians, socialism. We have to reach across all of these lines, and we have to get the ear of these politicians, and we have to get the ear of our community. Until we do that, we're not going to bring about a reasonable change. We can host all of the, all the conferences that we want, and we can do all these photo ops and all this, that, and the third, and we're all going to go right back home with no real change. So every voter strategy, everything that we say we want on the Black agenda, all the marches, all the rallies that we have mean absolutely nothing if we continue to sit behind these screens. That's how we got this first win. That's how I picked up the total of 4 candidates, because I came from behind the screens yet again, right? And then the way we got the 20,789 votes is because we went out into the community and we spoke to our people. And I promise you, our people are feeling just like us. We just don't know it because we're on the screen with all the intelligent ones who are sharing all this awesome information about freedmen and how we should fight, right? The others, like most of us were years ago, are not even aware of the fight yet.
Right.
And so it's for us to bring it to them, right? It's for each and every one of us are the leaders of this fight. The question is, every time a leader is called, will they pick up the phone and answer the call? That's the answer when it comes to the voter strategy. We don't have a large enough echo chamber to really change the vote through social media, because that's just the reality.
Yes.
Our larger, the way we change this vote and get people to understand that it's policy over party is you got to go out and talk to them. And you got to show them the policy that you're telling them to vote for. If you don't show it to them, they won't have a reason to come into the voting booth because they don't know it exists, because they're not here. And our leaders are not there. So each and every one of us, we are the leaders. No one needs to give you the title. You've been ordained that title by your ancestors, by your ancestral lines of who you are. You are a freedman. And therefore, you are born into leadership. Now, the question is, are you going to take that role seriously? All of your education coming out here on this YouTube and everything else means nothing if 96% of us are still sitting at home right now waiting for the NBA games to come on. When we're talking about sitting them out, they don't know we're talking about sitting them out. Why? Because the leaders haven't answered the call. The leaders are not out there where they're supposed to be leading. And until that happens, we're going to stay right here in the center of this tug of war, where sometimes we get pulled left, then we get pulled right. And guess where we always end up? Right in the center again.
Or on the bottom.
And the bottom happens to be the center in this political game. Now, one thing I do want to say is we need to take a page from the immigrants, from the Hispanics, the Latinos, and whatever. What you will see, and all the numbers are not out just yet, but what we are seeing is that they have split their vote straight down the freaking middle. They are voting Democrats and they are voting Republican. And so you know what they are doing that we won't do? They are playing right down the middle and they're leveraging the power. And now the Republicans are talking about how they can cape more towards them to shift their votes. Why? Because yet again, the Black/Freedmen/ AHUSN, FBA, all of our beautiful acronyms did not do enough this round to say we are fully awake. And so yet again, although we say we're not a monolithic group, we sure are showing opposite of that. All right, so what I'm saying to everyone is to understand we have to start playing straight down the middle. When we say our vote is up for sale, we've got to show it. And again, that only happens if we come out into the real world so that we can really shift the vote. Let me tell y'all something. The Republican Party expected STACIA only received 2,500 votes. And that was enough to qualify her as the Republican candidate, right? They didn't expect her to get much more than that, like close to 3,200 max. And understand that the nation's capital has about, at the last check, it was like 29,000 registered Republicans there, right? And they didn't even expect to get nothing more than about 3,200. We got that 20,789 votes because we went out into the community and we changed our people's mind when we showed them the agenda that was going to start getting them up off of this bottom of this totem pole, out the bottom of this sinking Titanic. And our people did not, they didn't even think twice. They didn't blink. They said, oh, she got my vote. That's how easy it is once we get the message to them. And so if we can get 20,000 plus votes in a matter of 3 weeks with next to nothing when it came to our donations for her, imagine what we could do if we start now, going back out into our communities and really beating the ground until 2024. Imagine what we would do to the Democrats and the Republicans, regardless of the immigrants' voting power that they're going to now get because of this midterm. Our vote still matters right now. What we do with it over the next 2 years will determine how much it matters moving forward for us.
I appreciate that. You have just really blessed the mic right there. Thank you so much. I want to go to Love My Folks. Hi, Stacia. I see Stacia in the building. I want to read her quote next. Love My Folks says the GOPs distancing themselves from Trump. Mike Pence did an interview aligning himself with immigrants, saying his mom was a first-gen Irish immigrant. GOP will start to soften their stance on illegals. And I would venture to say it's because we didn't get out here and invoke the Freedmen protest voter strategy, because we don't view closed borders and a moratorium on legal immigration and the Freedmen Reinvestment Act and citizenship first as tangibles. We either stayed home like is customary during the midterms, as if, we're doing some harm to the Demorats as they flood the country to erase and replace us with illegal immigration, whom they're intending to give citizenship with our vote, whom they're intending to give the vote with our vote. Okay, so I would venture to say we missed a big window this midterm to get the Republicans on our side. We got a small window now between now and 24 to turn the Titanic around. But it is going to require, as a son, whom we call the general, so eloquently stated, we've got to get boots on the ground. We've got to get the message to go viral on the outside, because we're speaking into echo chambers. And you guys are the leaders to make the protest voter strategy go viral. If you're interested in helping me to push the strategy in your neighborhoods, please reach out to me at thereperspect@gmail.com. It's scrolling in the bar below. Next, I want to read Stacia's comment. We're still whitewashed and cursed with a slave mind. Democrats bewitch and bait us, saying he or she is the first black, so we can wait for them as a wife with low self-esteem in an abusive marriage. First of all, congratulations, Stacia. Well done. A round of applause for you and your campaign manager, the General AHUSN Powell, and CAP, Capital Accountability Project, out of the DMV. You guys were a stellar example and blueprint as to how all the grassroots whom are serious about the Freedmen Nation, as the general shared, you're the blueprint for how we're going to get this done. And I'm going to follow it to the letter. I've got a meeting with Yaira and Jackie on Friday morning at 8 a.m. about implementing CAP's very, very successful blueprint out here in California against all the odds, because California is where I love and it's where I'd like to stay. But right now it's looking bleak. So I'm going to get with my girls out here and get this done. Hi, Sandra Delry 360. How you doing, fam? I hope to have more people on that Zoom this Friday at 8 a.m. I know many of you are working, but we have to get going with whom we got. And that's the spirit in which everybody has to go to work. You got to start right where you are. I see you, Ado's Truth. Thank you for joining the live. And with that being said, son, I'm not going to detain you. I did have one last question. How in the heaven is Joe Crow's numbers in the toilet, and the Demorats are still hanging on by the hair of their chinny chin chin, and what is needed to make them at least lose the Senate. It looks like the Senate race is going to boil down to Georgia yet again. What can Georgia do? Georgia that's watching, and folks who know Georgians, what can they do to defeat Warnock so that we can get closed border to control the House and the Senate? Any ideas?
So as far as the House goes, today the official announcement came out that the Republicans have seized control over the House.
Yes.
Now, as far as the Senate goes, there's no win there for the Republicans. Even with Georgia, because the voting is closed now, so it's just a matter of them counting the early votes and the mail-in votes, and typically those votes typically go to the Democrats, if you know the politics of it. And so the likelihood of Herschel Walker winning is probably very slim at this point. At this point, it still would not change as far as the Senate goes. The Democrats have seized control over the Senate, and the Republicans have seized control over the House. And that's what it's going to be moving forward. It could change, but I don't really foresee that change because everything is down based on the mail-in votes, and the absentee ballots, which are typically, again, Democratic. That's why the Democrats push so hard to have the early voting period and the mail-in ballots, because that's where they usually pick up more votes than the Republicans. In that way, that's just historically how it has always been. What can we do moving forward, though?
Yes.
This is what I say. And my advisory board is probably going to kill me later, but I'm going to say it because we all need to know it. So I encourage everyone to go back to the primaries. This past primaries, prior to the midterms, the primaries, all the candidates who ran, go get those candidates. Go back to Ballotpedia, go back to your state election board. They have all the candidates who ran and all the candidates who lost. And then I encourage you to create a standard form letter and reach out to those candidates who lost from the primary and the candidates who just lost in the midterm. And I encourage you to reach out to them. Send out, if you don't have the OFA agenda, you can reach out to me through CAP at CAP Task Force, at info@captaskforce.org, or through our Twitter page. I know some of you all know Dawn through CBAC USA. She also has it. I would encourage you to get the OFA information. Take a couple of parts from that, include it in your intro letter, and start reaching out to these candidates. Find out, are you interested in running in the next election? Now, some elections, such like here in Maryland, our state seats will not come available again until 2026. So look how many years we got to work with people, right? So I would encourage you to do that first. Pull all of the people who lost in the primary and in the midterm, reach out to them, find out if they're interested in running again. Ask them if you already have the data, which most of us should be able to get for the primary, and how we as the freedmen, or as they say, as the Black voters voted, then you should use that as leverage to ask them, are you interested in getting more Black votes for your next run? If so, this is who I am. I represent this specific group, and we have specific demands. And if you are willing to meet with us, we can assist you in garnering support from this group for your next run. Right, that's just what we have to do. We have to pick these candidates up now. We have to be the one to groom them. We have to create that 3-tier survey, so that if you're looking at someone who's running for your city council, because most of us have a city council, then we have the county council, then we have our state level delegates and senators, and then of course, we have the federal, right? And so you have to create that 3-tier questionnaire. You have to have some requirements. If they're at a city level, for example, and a city level is, can have maybe only 1,100 people in that city. Okay, so that person may be running for a city council seat. Cool. They may only need to have, in your eyes, you may say they will qualify if they've advocated, for 6 months, because that's a starter position. Now, if they've only advocated for 6 months and they're asking for a congressional seat, you might want to have a much tighter standard and, vetting. So I would encourage you all to do your research and understand the importance of what I call the feasibility test of when. Okay. And that's going to play into your 3-tier survey. Each one will have a different requirement, just like in an organization. If you want to be the president of an organization, you're going to have more requirements than someone who's just a general member, right? Because you're going to be leading at a different level, and we should have that same expectation when we comes to our candidates. So yeah, pull the primary people who lost and the current election people who lost. Create your 3-tier survey for each level of the government that the candidates will be running. Create a standard form letter. That form letter can be the same for each level, because we are still going to push our agenda, and we recognize that the quote unquote black vote has been ignored. And therefore, we know that you still need us to win right now. So we can help you with that as long as you're willing to agree to our policy pledge. Create your policy pledge. That's your other step. Know exactly what you want from the candidate. Know what you want them to commit to. Make sure that in there that you have, if you're elected, that you're going to agree to meet with us every 6 months. And if you're not elected and you intend on running again, that you agree to maintain the relationship with us to continue to grow out the Freedmen agenda. And then get to work. Get to work, get out. Even if it's only 2 or 3 of you, you will be amazed on a Saturday and a Sunday what 2 or 3 people can do in one neighborhood. Right? Pull the data, know where your freedmen are, and go into the neighborhood. Have your brochures or your flyers printed up and go back into the community. Educate the community. You'll see how your membership will grow. You'll see how people will embrace you, and we can really begin to change the political landscape when it comes to the freedmen. We can get candidates without having these big $1 million super PACs, these $1 billion super PACs. We just have to be the boots on the ground. We have to go to a scenic route until we are able to fund it the way we want to. Once we get those candidates and we get that transformational policy in place, yeah, we're going to be able to fund it. We're going to get those tangibles for sure.
Thank you so much, AHUSN. That was so fire. Thank you. Can you tell us once more, how do people reach CAP via email and your website, so I can type it in the chat?
Okay, so our email is info@captaskforce.org. And our website is captaskforce.org. And our Twitter handles are all the same as @captaskforce.org. And that's the same for Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, hold on. At Cap Task Force is a Twitter.
Yes.
And Facebook as well.
Yes.
Beautiful. Sister, as always, I so enjoyed this time together. And it's really back to work, but in a very, very invigorated, empowering way since your victory in the nation's capital. Um, it's such an inspiration. And I so appreciate you as a sister, friend, and comrade in this fight. I'm so blessed to be on the right side of history with you and learning from you and growing from your leadership. So thank you. Thank you, Cap, the collective. You've got some heavy hitters over there putting in extraordinary work. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with your blueprint here in California. Thank you so much, sis. I'm going to let you down into the lobby as I close the broadcast out.
Absolutely.
And I thank you. Any closing words?
I just want to say to everyone, thank you all for your support of Stacia. Stacia, if you're still here, what's up, sis? Happy that you were able to jump on. And for everyone else, please, if you have any questions about how do you move forward from the midterms, if you just want to find out how I can get better organized, reach out to us. Let's just share information and let's grow. Let's get stronger, better, and let's get out here and let's get our work done for our community. I don't say communities, I say community. We are one community. We are the Freedmen Nation. We are the Freedmen community. So let's just get out here and do it. We're here for you. You can reach out to us and we will definitely follow back up with you. So thank you all. I appreciate you. Love y'all much. As Angela says, love y'all black and strong.
That's right, family. Love y'all Freedmen strong.
There you go. Thank you. Freedmen strong. Amen to that. Good night.
Amen, sis. Well, you can hold the frame, child. We're probably going to talk after this anyway, if you got a second to spare.
Okay.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever Freedmen and its allies are, God truly is, because family, you are the face of God. Yes, you are. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. If no one's told you today, family, know that I love you black and I love you Freedmen strong. And until we meet again, family, I want you to make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and work week. And until we meet again, family, I'm believing for each and every one of us a ton of peace, love, and reparations. Reparations. Thank you so much for joining the line. Yes,